what I do and what we do at Oracle. Thereafter, we'll go into look at some of the options of why do we want to migrate, and what are we seeing in this space, and why Oracle. Why do we want to migrate to Oracle? What does Oracle bring to the table? And then we have guests. We have a partner, Advanced, here with us, and they'll be sharing some of the things that they bring to the migration space, as well as some customer stories as well. Okay, so a bit about myself. I work within the platform migration group. I've been working with Oracle Tech, I would say, about 19, 20 years. Primarily working in the space of Oracle databases and the Oracle BI and data warehousing. And most people, the last 4 or 5 years, luckily I've managed to work with the Oracle Cloud Infrastructure as well, in the cloud space as well. I used to be an Oracle ACE director. I always have to, not an ACE director anymore because obviously I work for Oracle now, but I mean, I always like to talk a bit about it to get, people should be, don't know much about the Oracle ACE program. I think it's a great little thing for customers, people who are in the tech space, to get involved in. It's a community, share the knowledge around with our peers. So I've spoken at a number of different places like UK, US, Germany, Poland, Ireland, and it's all about sharing this knowledge, sharing the expertise that we have to assist other people as well. I'm also on Twitter as well. You can follow me on that Twitter handle. I do tweet, sometimes, and I also retweet all the good stuff that to share, in the technology space. So definitely worth following. It's always interesting. So a bit about the platform migration group. So it's an interesting a team within Oracle. I don't think many people know, and I'm hoping I get some more people to know about the team as well. So we work within the research and development area. We get engaged with our field teams, assisting our customers, to help solve their problems. We number of different products. We use a number of different products that we have and that we've done to use these tools, to provide the best practices and approaches in these competitive and legacy spaces, for these migrations. One of the great things about working with these tools and working on these migration spaces is that, from what we learn from these, we can actually take these back to the product development teams and help to, innovate our products even better to get these things working as well. And one of the other key things is that doing these migrations and what we learn and what we bring, it allows us to, take these to the customers to assist them with their roadmaps, to get them from A to B in the fastest way possible, and to be successful as well, which is a key thing here. We look at a number of different applications. We're looking at our objectives to transform and to move all non-Oracle databases to various targets. These targets can be Oracle Autonomous, they can be Exadata at cloud customers, or they could be, we could be looking at an Oracle database on a Linux machine somewhere. So, we don't take any specific target. We look for the best fit for the customer. One of the key things here we look at is distributed databases, DB2, Sybases, SQL servers. But, we don't just stop there. We also look at these, the mainframes as well, migrating these applications using various different replication softwares. One of the key things with these legacy migrations is that, a lot of people, want to migrate and their core systems, trying to look for, the best way possible to do these. And, what we bring is these automation tools that can assist in moving these core systems away. We look at, a number of different things when we move in these applications. We look at the application layer, the database layer, to understand what the business is looking for. And from this, we can provide you the best fit approach. How are we going to get you from A to B, and what is going to be the correct method for your organization. So let's look at why migrate. I mean, I think a lot of people say, why do we want to migrate off, some of these old systems, and one of the key things is the tech space is changing a lot. And at the moment that we have a lot of different new innovation going on, so in the last 5, 6 years, 10 years, I think there's more of AI than machine learning going on. I think we've got a lot of blockchain, talking about autonomous, and then we've got IoT. But also, we talk about human interfaces as well. There's all these different new opportunities that are coming into this space now. And, one of the key things at the moment is, I think a lot of people look at these digital assistants as well. I think, it's hard to get through to people. And people want to look at, find it quite easy using these digital assistants to be able to do these web chats. So there's definitely a lot of things going on. And I think one of the key things here is that a lot of people want to use these different systems and, trying to find ways of, how can they integrate a digital assistant with their database? How can they use blockchain? We want to use some machine learning. How can we get started on AI and machine learning? So these are all the exciting things that, people want to do. And I'll be showing you in a minute why, Oracle brings you a lot of these things that come with the database. So we'll have a look at them. One of the key things is, when we look at these things is competition. Now, I was just telling you about all these different new systems that are out at the moment. Now, when we look at new companies that are starting up, like people like Uber and Netflix, they're all using the latest platforms and the latest technology, which allows them to provide, great new initiatives to customers and stuff. So, we all want to get to that same place. So, that's why people look to migrate. So it's a very key thing, to migrate and to use these new nice systems that are going to be available. Another key thing here is, and I think there's a lot of here at the moment, is staff retirement. Now, when we talk about staff retirement, we're talking a lot about is the old legacy systems, yeah? So, some of these systems that have been around for many, many years, these core systems, a lot of these people are using these systems and they've been running these systems for many years at the moment. And people are retiring and, who's going to look after these manage these systems as well. So, it's very important, to move off these systems and move to the latest and greatest environment, So it's definitely another key requirement. Another thing is cost, yeah? Everybody wants to save money. It doesn't matter whether you're a small company or whether you're a big and operational company like big banks or insurance services, everybody wants to save money in some way or another. So it's another reason why, there's different ways of saving money. So why Oracle? I mean, that's an interesting question. I mean, a lot of people say this to me when I go and talk to people and ask, saying, oh, we can assist with migrations, talk to my colleagues and friends in big SI companies and stuff, and they say, oh, so why do we want to move to Oracle? So, let's hope that, after I finish it, you might, consider Oracle as well, one of the key things. So, what do we want from our databases now? That's the key question here, is we all want real-time analytics, yeah? We all want to be able to scale out our systems and move our systems and stuff, be able to, if there's a peak time going on, we're going to be launching a concert or something and we're a ticketing house, we're going to have loads and loads, we want to be able to scale, and, we want to be able to do patches and stuff with no downtime and stuff. So these are the world is changing, the environment is changing, and people want to do these different things. One of the other things is, we talk about machine learning as well. You read about it and hear about these things that people want to do machine learning and AI. And, you'd go and listen to these talks about machine learning. You will see hundreds of people. Everybody wants to do machine learning. How can we use machine learning to do this data, and learn from our data? I mean, data is a key thing here. So, it's another thing that everybody wants to look at. So one of the things I want to look at here is, one of the first things that, Oracle do a number of different databases. Yeah. So I'm going to just cover a couple of them and what these options give you as a customer as well. So, if we look at over 20 years for the Oracle database, starting in Oracle database 9A, we started doing automations, starting doing capabilities from memory management to workload monitoring and tuning, and we've gone over all the way up to automatic indexes now. One of the key things of all this stuff, where have we been going? Where have we been heading? If you look at this curve, all these automations that have been happening, and now, it's a perfect fit now. We've also brought in now is the autonomous databases. Yeah, so we've got our autonomous data warehouse, and we've got the Oracle, the ATP, Oracle Transactional Processing. It basically, the automation allows us these run on a complete Exadata systems, which gives you that performance that you need. And, it's an automated data center operations as well, which includes provisioning, patching, upgrading, backups of it are taking place. It gives you the scaling, diagnostic performances, and, that automatic handling of errors and failures and stuff. So, it's a key product that we have launched, and, it's definitely a great thing to consider as one of the databases. What are the, we look at strategic advantages, what is the strategic advantages of the autonomous database service? In line with the traditional cloud-based values, the business can move away from, these complex long-term forecasting, startup times, enabling the innovation at speed of 4 rather than the speed of IT. One of the other key things here is that we talk about, the security. We talk about, multi-layered security architecture that protects your data. It comes with the autonomous. From hardened network design to always encrypted data in motion and at rest. These are all the key elements of our autonomous that we bring. And also, the autonomous source solves that workforce dilemma, removing the risk associated with workforce retirement. We just looked at retirement, while simultaneously delivering a sea change in operational through software automation, or one of the most complex areas in running a business, data management. So those are key things here for the autonomous database service. If we wanted to look at that, it's definitely something to consider in one of the databases. Another, a great function that our databases bring, what I'm showing you here is all the things that are great things that the Oracle database brings. These are not different products that, you need to buy or anything. These come with databases. Another thing is the in-memory database, the in-memory option that comes within the Oracle database. With memory and SSD costs much lower these days. These machines that are now being built come with these vast capacities that can be utilized, and that's where the database memory comes. You can get up to 10 times faster analytics, by using the columnar compression that the in-memory uses to store this information in. And, I think a lot of people use this in data warehouses, and some people want to do analytics with their OLTP, which is a key thing. So, it's definitely being used in a number of different places. And, I think we have a number of customer case studies. So it's definitely something to look at if you're doing these things with your applications and stuff. Another key thing is, we bring machine learning. We talk about machine learning. I talk about machine learning. I'm not going too much into machine learning, but, our database comes with the algorithms within the database that you can actually use, using either SQL Developer, using data mining. You can actually use these algorithms that are pre-built in there. And it comes with, number of different algorithms that you can use. And, there's a list here of quite a few algorithms here that you could use. I'm not going to go for each one, but there's different ones for depending on what you're doing. But I suppose you do need to know a bit about data science of what we're doing and stuff. But it's pretty easy to use in the database with data mining and SQL Developer. So, you can definitely get your analytics team to have a look at that if they wanted to use that. Last little thing, we talk about Apex, and this comes within with the Oracle database. And I think it's very undervalued, a product that comes with that, It's definitely, you can bring your data from your mainframe onto an Oracle database, and you can have your applications, but you could actually create a mini application within using Apex that people could use. Has great functions like responsive for mobile apps and stuff. So it's definitely something to have a look at. I'm not going to go too much into Apex, but it's definitely interesting, and I think you would hear a lot about Apex. Right, before I give it to Kevin, I just wanted to share, I know I shared quite a few things, but, combining all that sort of stuff, the migrations and all the different Oracle database, there's a number of business benefits of these that come in there. And, we talked about mainframe migrations, these automation tools and stuff. What we're talking about here is that, the lines of business, you don't have to be worried about retraining. People can carry on using, the same sort of screens that they're using. There's these functions that are available. Which is the key thing here. Then we talked about in memory, definitely, we talk about BI, using these data, use it in place. We don't need to move it anywhere. If you're using the in memory and you're using that database that has the power to be able to do analytics, do we need to move it off anywhere? You can actually start doing some of the analytical reports on there. But then obviously we talked about the autonomous database, given that all that automation that comes with the autonomous database running on the old backbones of Exadata to give you the performance. Make your DBAs do different areas of work to more strategically. They don't really have to worry about doing the moving data files and creating table spaces and stuff. So there's an advantage of those areas, and we've got the security. But it's definitely quite a few things to consider here, and definitely one of the key things here is the high return on investment is definitely worth looking into. But before I hand it to Kevin, so we talk a bit more about migration stuff. So some of the transformational advantages and stuff. Highly automated migration technology. We talk about these. When we're talking about moving these old mainframes and migrations and stuff, the cost of modernization, I think a lot of people get scared even thinking about it and thinking, can this be done and how much impact it's going to make on the business, and there's ways around that. And, it is possible. That's the thing. A lot of people think it can't be done and they're not going to move. But it is possible. And I think, after Kevin's, had a word as well, I think you'll see, okay, it's definitely something to have a look at, and I think this is the time now to move, to start moving away from these old mainframes and start utilizing all these new functions that are coming out with the new databases, and there's a lot of change going on. So thank you. Let me give it to Kevin now to, give a bit of an introduction and how they can help as well.
Great. Thanks for that, Kiran. Can you hear me all right?
Yes, Kevin.
Good stuff. So hello, everybody. I work for a company called Advanced. I'm going to tell you a few things about the company, but I'll keep that bit mercifully short, and then we'll dive into the modernization of old legacy applications, which is really what this particular webcast is all about. So I'm the Partner Alliance Manager who looks after the Oracle partnership that we have. As a company, we've been around since 1983. We're really a product of various acquisitions of various software and services elements. And you can see our kind of vital statistics on the slide in terms of the size. So just under 3,000 staff, but for that size of company, we're quite substantial from a turnover point of view. The Cloud and IT Services division of the company, which is about a third of the company, is if it was a standalone system integrator on its standing on its own 2 feet, would be about 800 staff. And you can see the various office locations that we have throughout the UK where we're headquartered, but also in the US where we've done a fair amount of acquisitions, and across Europe, and we have some significant development centers in India. So we have resources able to execute on projects all over the world, although most of our modernization projects tend to be in the UK and Europe or in the States. So application modernization is a term that people use to represent all sorts of different things. So it's probably too generic. If I'm talking to an IT department, I'll be talking about a mainframe migration because that's what they understand, the big box that sits in the corner and how that's going to be moved onto a much more modern and useful platform. The interesting thing on this slide is if you take the 2.5 billion lines of code and you divide by 500 plus projects, you wind up with around about 5 billion lines of code per project. A small project for us probably converts about a million lines of code. 5 million would be an average, and we do many projects much bigger than that. So this is a summary just of customers that we've done work for over the last 10-20 years, many of which you'll recognize, some of which are slightly more obscure. I think it's probably a good slide to come back to Kiran's question about, why migrate, why modernize. There's really two main reasons in the main. I'm happy to say that more recently, the more modern reasons in recent years are things like people wanting to use modern technologies like the machine learning and other AI tools that Kiran was talking about. But even something as basic as APIs, which we're used to now, don't necessarily work with legacy mainframe systems because they are that old and that antiquated. So just trying to get data connected or out of some old form of database and into something more modern, more scalable, like an Oracle solution, is one of the kind of non-cost reasons why people move. But the primary reason why every one of the people on this slide will have moved is because it made financial sense to do so. When you compare the cost of running these old legacy mainframes and the alternatives, whether that involves physical hardware from Oracle or other stables, or whether it involves cloud solutions like Oracle's or others, the costs absolutely dwarf the cost of running the mainframe. There'll be a 10th, possibly even a 20th of the cost of the old systems. And what's kind of interesting is that we found that the migrations we have underway at the moment have not slowed down at all in spite of the COVID-19 crisis, because that's how important they are to those particular companies in terms of saving that money and cutting their costs. So although COVID-19 certainly has put some companies on the back burner and their IT projects on hold, we still have others who are saying to us, we need to cut costs, we need to save money, we also want to be more agile, and now's the time we want to start looking at that in spite of the pandemic that's going on at the moment. So here's a slide that describes exactly what we do, right? So if you see all the boxes on the left of the slide, all the old antiquated languages in orange boxes, PL1, assembler, natural, these are the languages that Kiran was referring to when he talks about nobody being around to be able to maintain this, and certainly no new graduates out of university want to go back and learn these antiquated code-based line-by-line languages. Many of those people retiring or just no longer available. So the pinch point is coming for all the mainframe users around the skills shortage. That's probably the third major driver why people are moving. And similarly, the various types of database that you can see in green, down below, really flat structures with absolutely no way in which you can interrogate that sort of data. And we find that modernization can wind up in a couple of places. You sometimes find people modernizing onto a more modern version of the kind of mainframe that they had, because that gives them some extra performance and so on. But it doesn't obviously produce the cost savings. So it's becoming a less and less popular approach. By far, the most common approach is to migrate into some sort of hybrid cloud environment, probably involving hardware in somebody's data center and solutions hosted on that hardware. Of course, Nirvana, and this is where people should be aiming for, is a cloud-based solution. It's very common that we're using Oracle Tuxedo as middleware in many of those particular environments. So, thoroughly modern solution would give you all those benefits, the cost savings, but also the agility in a final system. So we do this with code conversion IP that we've written ourselves over literally decades, and it will convert old languages to more modern equivalents like Java, C# or a .NET stack, or even just modernizing from one of these very old languages to COBOL is sometimes the stepping stone that people use. And here's a bit of a visual of what a project looks like. Now, the elephant in the room, I guess, is that these particular projects take a long time. They take a long time to define from a sales point of view. 3, 6, 9 months is not uncommon. And they take a while to roll out. Again, 6, 12, even 24 months to migrate these bigger and more complex systems. And so it's really important that we have got a structured methodology that works and works kind of time and time again. So over in the Discover box, we typically use a series of simple questionnaires for people to define what their estate looks like. And from that, we're able to then determine what we call a rough order of magnitude of cost for the migration, and more importantly, for the solution and how much it'll cost to run after the migration. So we can really early in the piece do the sums which say you spend this much now, you need to spend this much to move, and you will spend this much afterwards, and that figure will be substantially lower than what you have. And it really builds the business case inside the business for why that migration is important. During the assess and design phase, we call for all the code. So we will literally take every piece of source code and run it through various application analyzer tools that we have built. It gives us a very good idea of the dependencies on the code and how we're going to convert it into Java or other modern equivalents. But it does something else. It identifies all the code in that library of source code that's never called, that's never actually accessed by any other routine in that antiquated legacy code. And it's amazing that we can find that between 30% and 70% of the code that is discovered is often not required at all, can be retired immediately, and there's immediate cost saving early in the project when that code doesn't have to be looked at, backed up, managed, or dealt with in any particular way. The transform block is the largest block because obviously it's the one that takes the time through some iterative testing routines and altering the tools to cope with whatever unusual elements there might be in particular code. So I'm not going to call them bugs because they work in the old code, but you need to doctor them if you're going to get them to work in the new code. And then finally testing, and these particular systems need to be tested extensively because they are such mission critical systems that the business typically just cannot afford to have them go wrong on their initial deployment or be down for a week. I mean, they could literally cripple the business given the important nature that they have. As a company, we also manage IT environments, and we'll do that for clients that want that service from ourselves. Otherwise, we'll happily integrate that final solution into the managed service provision that they get from other providers. And because we're a provider ourselves, we really know kind of how to do that. So that's a little bit about our company and how we perform projects to transform mainframes. If you're thinking, yeah, that's something that I have clients that could do that, or we have a mainframe that we should modernize, I guess the question you're going to go away with is, how do I convince everybody that it's a good idea? So building the business case for modernization starts, as it says on the left of the slide, with thinking about what are the business challenges that the business faces and that this mainframe is standing in the way of. And of course, back to the COVID-19, there have been multiple stories, some across Europe, but many more in the US, where you find mainframes running local government agencies within local state government. And there's been story after story about how unemployment claims have taken 5 times as long, and how payouts haven't happened, and so on. There's a good example of what happens if you ignore the problem and just hope that it'll sort of somehow go away. And then, of course, in time of crisis or in time of need, you find that you really, that system's not going to perform for you. So the reason why I wanted to talk about that is it's not just about IT challenges. I mean, yes, the IT challenges are the cost of the thing, the people that run it and so on. That's definitely very important. But identifying your own business challenges and what you'll get if you move to a more modern solution is really important. And so Oracle and their particular partners can help with that in terms of articulating what a modern Oracle solution and stack looks like, and how that is way superior of the old kind of legacy technology. And just to flesh out the thoughts a little, this particular slide starts with that strategic roadmap and says, where do we need to go? But then playing devil's advocate slightly shows that there's probably a couple of options facing you, and sometimes you have to try and work out where do we go, what do we do? There's probably a 6th box, which I haven't put on this slide, which is the we could do nothing box, and obviously that has its own kind of implications and increased risk for the business. But rehosting is typically one of the things that we're doing. So you may decide you don't need to modernize the language. You're going to take the particular application off the mainframe, move it to an Oracle infrastructure environment, and that can be done relatively quickly. It's the one below that, the convert, where you decide to change the language, down to the programmers, or you want to hire new programmers to make changes to the application, and it can't be done in the old language. Re-engineer is one that's often popular at the beginning of the suggestions, because people say, well, why don't we just write it from the ground up? Why don't we put all that functionality we want into the package? Why don't we just redo the whole thing? And so it sounds like an attractive option, but you can imagine it's the most technically difficult option possible. You're basically going to try and become a software house and write a piece of software yourself. The replace option of buying a package, frankly, would be much more sensible. The challenge there is whether you can find a package that actually does everything you want it to do, or can you change that package to do what you want it to do? Is it customizable? And so the more that your legacy application is kind of a one-off that got written for an old mainframe, the less that's going to be possible. But if you find, yeah, actually we can find something that does exactly the same, that's probably one of the most cost-effective routes. It just doesn't necessarily happen that often. So hopefully that's given you some thoughts in terms of, if you're trying to build a business case internally, the kind of discussions that you would kick off between yourselves and your kind of stakeholders. I'm going to close just by giving you a couple of stories of some of our Oracle success stories, so you get an idea of what those sort of implementations might look like in the field. So the first example I've chosen is in fact Deutsche Bank. We find more projects in banking and insurance than in any other commercial vertical or industry across the globe. It's really just a hotbed of old machines, old systems that are still ticking over and doing what they should do, and therefore they've never been changed. So Deutsche Bank, this was a conversion from an operating system originally owned by ICL and then bought by Fujitsu called OpenVMS. And we converted the entire estate across to an Oracle database solution. The applications were converted and running in Java, and that was all running in a Linux type of environment. So this is what we did. The go live of their first system was back in August 2018. That was their foreign exchange system, which handles 25% of the world's foreign exchange transactions. So a real mission critical solution, which without which you couldn't function. So quite a complex migration project. And we're now busy migrating a second system of theirs. It's their core payment system. It makes over 6 billion payment transactions every day. So you can imagine with that sort of volume, again, that has to be something that you're able to cut over seamlessly and without any errors. It could literally cripple the business if that didn't run as it should. We have a number of projects with Her Majesty's Government in the UK. This one with the Department for Work and Pensions. This is the third largest program of change that's ever been mooted in central government. So it was a massive project. And it involved moving their entire legacy mainframe application estate one system at a time. So every single one of the benefit systems that they run has been moved. So all of the kind of payments that are made for unemployment claims, any sort of disability, all of that is under their roof. The only thing it doesn't include is universal credit, since that's a more modern solution, and that's actually run by HMRC rather than DWP. But everything else, job seekers, pensions, living allowances, you name it. And they had actually tried to move these systems before and failed, which is why getting in and working out a way to do it properly was really quite a commercial win for us. And we're currently through 6 of those systems that have all moved across to an Oracle platform. And again, it includes Oracle Tuxedo as middleware as well. My last example, Conduit, is really just what I threw in because it's a slightly different kind of technology environment. This is a large IBM mainframe that ran Conduit, a very large digital services company, which was spun out from Xerox back in, well, a couple of years ago now. And we're looking to move both COBOL and a legacy system called Adabas Natural, which is a combination of a development language and another database. All of that moved across to Oracle, all of the COBOL converted to Java, everything running in a Linux type of environment. So hopefully that's given you a flavor for the kind of projects that we get involved with. And thanks to Kiran and Tammy for the chance to tell you a bit more about Advanced. You're welcome to ask questions in the chat window, or please feel free to get in touch through Kiran. And we'd be happy to have conversations with you about anything else that you want to talk about under the very broad topic of legacy migration. Back to you, Kiran.
Karen? Oh, there we go. All right.
Oh, yeah. Hi, Tammy. Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Kevin. Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Karen and Kevin. For those of you on the call, I will post this PowerPoint with the replay. If you just go back to the Ask Tom session that you joined, excuse me, you will see the session and a link to the replay, and then the PowerPoint link will be found right under that replay window. If there's any last minute questions, or please ask them in Q&A. We do have a few minutes, and I know that Karen and Kevin are very happy to take any of your questions. Or if you raise your hands, maybe I can unmute you and you can ask it live. They're all very quiet today, guys. Any Karen or Kevin, any other last minute thoughts then?
Well, that's great. I mean, if anybody is thinking, or want to get in touch or anything, my email is on the screen. So yeah, do definitely just drop an email, and we can definitely have a look and have a chat. Definitely.
Fantastic. All right. Well, then I think we'll wrap it up. We haven't seen any other questions. Thank you all for joining us today. Please stay tuned. We'll have a next month in June. We'll have our next Database Cloud Service Office Hours. Please check in anytime on the Ask Tom for the next topic. If you have any topics that you'd like to hear from us, please drop me an email at tammy.bednar@oracle.com. With that, I want to again thank Karen and Kevin for joining us today and providing this great information. Until next time, thank you. Have a great day. Stay safe out there.